welcome to Bible Study with Alison. Today we're on day 4, Esther 4 of our daily Esther reading. We're reading from the ESV translation, but you're more than welcome to join us from a different translation. As you can see, we're on chapter 4. These videos are filmed in real time. Today's date is the 9th of May 25 and it's a Friday. You can find the previous 3 chapters in the playlist below. There is a disclaimer as usual, and that is 1, these videos are unedited. Also, I probably stumble on my wording, which always seems to happen. And also, a new-ish disclaimer. I'm going to probably mispronounce the wording in some of these words in the Bible, so I will apologise in advance. But I am trying my hardest to learn. Let's get started. Esther agrees to help the Jews. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth, and in every province, wherever the king's commanded and he decrees reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and lamenting, and many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's young woman and her entourage came and told her the queen was deeply distressed, she sent garments to clothe Mordecai, so that he might take off his sackcloth. But he would not accept them. Then Esther called for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed to attend her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasury for the destructions of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, and that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go into the king to beg his favour and plead with him on behalf of her people. And Hathach went and told Esther that Mordecai had said. And then Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and the people of the king's province know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden sceptre, so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I'll go to the king, though it's against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. Right, so that is chapter 4 complete. Tomorrow we will be doing chapter 5. So with this particular one, obviously Esther was mentioned, and as I said in previous videos, I do quite like the fact that they have the bit at the top that obviously explains what the chapter is going to be talking about. So obviously Esther is obviously the king's queen, the king's wife, but she doesn't hold any kind of say in what happens. So basically what I mean by that is, if the king had asked somebody to come into his inner circle and had actually specifically request that person to go into that inner circle, then they can go in there without any issues. But obviously with what Esther was saying throughout this was that the king hadn't actually asked her to go in and hasn't requested her to go in 30 days, and because of that she obviously would be perished, she would be killed. It doesn't matter who you are, if you obviously disobey the king, you're going to be killed. So that's basically what that obviously was meaning, is that Esther is going to potentially get killed, but as we discover, she's not going to get killed. So obviously Esther agrees to help the Jews. So obviously Mordecai learned what had happened. So obviously he was found out via the letter that all the Jewish people were going to be assassinated because of what happened with Mordecai, because Mordecai did not pay homage, did not bow to the king, and obviously the king was really cross and angry, and he's now wanting to kill all Jewish people, which then obviously means he would potentially kill his wife. But yeah, that's basically how that would then go. So obviously all the Jewish people wore sackcloths and ashes, and then they went out into the city. They cried out because obviously they were distressed at what's going to happen to themselves. And obviously, the king has commanded this, so obviously they're all unhappy. They're obviously crying, they're fasting, they're lamenting. Lamenting is basically praying. That's basically what lamenting means. And obviously they, obviously going out looking like that. So obviously Esther's young women and her uncles came and told her the queen was obviously deeply distressed. So now Esther discovered what's going to happen. She's distressed because she's Jewish, and now all her Jewish people, Jewish friends, family, who's obviously Mordecai, are now going to be killed. So obviously she's clearly distressed. And so obviously Mordecai's obviously stood outside the king's palace, the king's castle, king's gate, whichever you want to describe it as. And he's obviously out there. And now there's like an exchange between Mordecai and Esther, but via Hacknack, who is obviously the king's worker, basically. But he's obviously appointed to look after the queen, look after Esther. So obviously the king has all these different people, have different roles, and the king has appointed this particular person to look after his queen. And so now that it's a bit like Chinese whispers sort of thing. So he's obviously been asked to go and pass the message on to Mordecai. Mordecai's then been saying to him, can you pass this message on to Esther? So forth and so forth. It just goes back and forth, the conversation between Esther and Mordecai. So obviously Mordecai then gives this decree to him, so he now knows what's going on. And obviously, as we know, that obviously all the king's servants aren't by law allowed to just go wandering into the king. It's just something that doesn't happen. You can't just go wandering into the king, into the king's presence without the king actually asking for you to be present. And then obviously in 12, and they told Mordecai what Esther had said. So obviously Esther is now saying that she can't go willingly-nilly into the king's court, into his inner circle, without the king actually requesting so. So now Mordecai is really cross with Esther because he now wants her to know just how important it is for her to say something to the king. He thinks that Mordecai, that Esther has a lot to say to the king, can just say it. It's like, he's your husband, you say something to him, he should be able to listen to you and be able to stop this annihilation happening, stop killing all these innocent Jewish people. The thought of it is just awful. And so basically he's just really, really cross and angry with Esther because he feels that Esther should do more to help the people. So then Esther obviously feels like, well, okay, Mordecai is now, is my guardian, he's my cousin, he's my family member. I should basically respect what he's saying. So she's then saying, well, okay, I will go and speak to him, but before we do that, we now got to fast for 3 days, not to eat or drink in that time, day or night. And she'll do it, and all the women in a court will do it, everybody will do it, because obviously they don't want to be killed, basically. That's basically what it is. Obviously, naturally, nobody wants to be killed. Nobody wants their people killed just because somebody disobeyed the king. So, obviously, at this point in time, Esther's like, okay, I will do what you want me to do. I will go and speak to the king, but we've got to do it on my terms first. We're going to fast about this. We're going to pray about it. That's basically what happens, because obviously when you're fasting and you're praying, blessings will occur. And they feel that, or Esther felt that, if she had done that, then, we should be able to see what happens. And she's obviously accepted that if I perish, I perish. I will go again. I will go to the king, though it's against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So she's like saying to Mordecai, I'll do it. I'll go and speak to my husband. I'll go and speak to the king. It's against the law to do so, but I'll do it. But if I perish because of it, I'll perish. I'm just going to take it as it is. I want to save my people. I'm agreeing to save my people. I will speak to the king to try and stop it, to try to see what we can do to stop this from happening, and and see what we can do about it. And if I die, I die. And obviously that was then passed back to Mordecai, and then Mordecai was like, okay, I'll accept that. I accept that as a thing we can do. We can do that. We can, I'll do everything that you want me to do. I'll go and fast for 3 days. I will not eat and drink for those 3 days, and I will pray and hope for the best that you will come out of this alive, and that we will all come out of it alive, because obviously that's not what anybody wants, is to be killed. And obviously Esther being Jewish anyway, she doesn't want her people killed, because that's basically like a part of herself being killed. Her parents already died, so she's already lost family members anyway, so why would she want to lose any more? So, what we've learnt so far is that the king obviously had his banquet. Queen Vestity was refused to do what the king wanted. Because of that, King Ahasuerus then finds a new queen, which was Esther. They had to bring all the virgins and all them to the table, sort of thing, like a bit like a beauty contest. And then Mordecai discovered there was a plot, and discovered that, and the 2 people who were plotting against him, who was doing the plot, gets killed themselves. They get killed. And then the man is plotting against the Jews, because obviously Mordecai was not doing as he was asked, to pay homage to King Ahasuerus, and King Ahasuerus was really cross and angry. And then Esther will then agree to help her people, help the Jewish people, by going against the law of talking to the king without his without his say so, and going against that, and she's prepared to risk her own life to save those, to save her people. And by doing so, it meant that she's going to risk her own life. And she was going to fast and get Mordecai also to fast. Everybody was going to fast for 3 days, days and night, not drink any water or eat any food, and just fast for 3 days. She was going to go to the king, speak to him about it all, and see what he's got to say. And in hopes that if she dies, she dies. If she don't, she don't. But hoping, obviously, that she's going to survive it. But as we find, we're only on chapter 4. So obviously, he doesn't kill her. That's a bit of a spoiler. But, it's a bit of a spoiler. I don't like giving out spoilers, but we are only on chapter 4 and there's 10 chapters. So, obviously, he didn't kill her yet. Even if that's even not a spoiler. We just don't want to go into spoilers here. But, she's obviously been, doesn't want to be killed, but wants to speak to her husband about what's going on. Don't want anybody to, doesn't want her Jewish friends and family being killed either. As I said, Mordecai is a guardian. He's there to look after her. He's technically her cousin. But because her mum and dad had passed away when she was a child, Mordecai became that guardian to keep her safe. So that is chapter 4 complete. I'll write the then date at the top. If I turn my pen on. Probably not. So day 4, and then the 9th of May 25. So that is chapter 4 complete. Tomorrow we're going to be doing chapter 5. So thank you for watching. Please like my content, please subscribe to my channel, and please turn on the notification bell so you get notified of content like this that gets uploaded to the channel. Thank you and goodbye.